Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's a pleasure to send our greetings to all of our friends and colleagues that are participating from throughout the world. On behalf of IFEES and GEDC and IUCEE, it's a real pleasure uh, to uh, to welcome you, and we appreciate you joining us. It is now my great pleasure to introduce you to a wonderful friend, a key leader, and a partner with whom I've had the privilege of working together globally for many years, Dr. Soma Chakrabarti. Dear Soma, I leave it in your able hands. Please go ahead.
Thank you, dear Hans. Hello, I'm Soma Chakrabarti. As Hans has mentioned, I am the Secretary General of International Association for Continuing Engineering Education, and I will be giving the conductor role to Anita. But before that, let me just say a couple of words about IACE and IFEES, how they are complementing each other. IACE supports the educators and the learning and development professionals all over the world who are engaged in the administration as well as program development of professional engineering trainings. And we have been around for 35 years. It stemmed out of UNESCO, and we are so pleased to have our UNESCO representative also here, Ravani Segamoni. And the way we complement IFEES's work is, and by the way, IACEE is a member of IFEES, a member organization. So is that IFEES is predominantly has concentrated on the undergraduate teaching, whereas IACEE works for the professionals who are engaged in engineering and technology work. So that's how we pretty much cover a lifetime of engineering education. With that, let me introduce our first vice president, IACEE's first vice president and vice president for professional development and communication, as well as member engagement, Anita Chawla, who works for Engagely but volunteers for IACEE, and she's going to facilitate the discussion between Roger Kohler and Ayat Said.
Thank you
Anita,
so much.
all yours.
Thank you so much, Soma and Hans. Thank you very much. We're very excited to bring to you the webinar today about trends in AI and how AI is quickly evolving for teaching and learning. And we have two esteemed panelists. And without further ado, I would love to introduce Roger Kohler to the webinar. Roger, why don't you give a quick introduction about yourself?
My name's Roger Kohler. I've worked as a software engineering consultant for 20 years. I now work at ASU as the director of AI solutions and architecture. So I love to solve problems with technology, and I think AI is the best way to solve a lot of problems in our current age. So I'm a great optimist and advocate for AI.
Thank you, Roger. Ayat is also here. Ayat, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. I'm sorry I'm late. My name is Ayat, and I also work with Roger at ASU currently. I've been in the software industry for about 15 years now, and I, like Roger, believe AI is a serious turning point, and it's never been as interesting as it is now in my career. So I have experience working in retail at Amazon, but also at other education institutions and startups, and I'm very happy to be with you today.
Thank you so much, Ayat and Roger. So we have a pretty packed agenda today. We wanted to do a quick round of introductions so you all understand our background. And all of us here on the panel are higher ed disruptors. And ASU now has a relationship with OpenAI. And so there's been some very interesting projects that have been happening in the realm of education. So we'd like to do a quick panel discussion. There's a lot of questions. We would like participation from all of you if you have questions during the panel discussion. We're going to present different thoughts of view and really would love to hear from you. And along with the panel discussion, there's going to be also some demonstrations by our panelists. So the first topic for today is, what are the strategies for safe use of AI when we think about safety, ethics, and governance? And I'd like to turn this over to Ayat first for her thoughts around this very controversial topic of how to safely use AI.
Well, I might get a little more controversial. So I take the stance of too much governance and too many rules and too much planning may stifle innovation. And right now is not the right time to stifle innovation. When new things come out every single day, it's really important to stay with that speed, learn it quickly, and see how it can be applied quickly. And I think there are many strategies to do that in a safe way, but it's important to harnessing this, the opportunities that AI has by kind of moving fast along with it.
Interesting.
So
yeah, go ahead.
that is great. But how do we control for the risks? So AI has like an existential risk built in that it could actually harm students, could harm the world. Are you sure that rash approach of limited governance is going to serve your organizations? How do you deal with like substantial risk? Like in a university, FERPA data is critically important, and there are laws that have huge fines if you lose any of that data. How do you control for, say, losing FERPA data when a new AI feature is added to Adobe or something like that, and all of a sudden someone puts data in there that's inappropriate?
That's a great point. And of course, I think that as we move along, we have to have strategies for keeping ourselves and our data and our students safe. So although you can move fast, you need to do it safely. So one way in which ASU does it is decentralizing governance. And so everything doesn't have to come through the same door. Everything doesn't have to be crammed through the same door, like say the provost or what have you, or the security team in your central IT department. Those are challenges we definitely faced. But what we did was take a decentralized approach and say, we're going to give you the tools to measure the impact of what you're building. We're going to give you tools to learn about the technology you're using so that you can move forward and make the right decisions for your use case, for your particular classroom or student or school, etc. And so we've developed a series of committees, some that are faculty-led, some that have some of our legal scholars, some that give us feedback from what students feel from using the tools right away. And I think that's a great way to move about it. We also provide tools. For example, our data scientists at ASU created an ethical evaluation framework. And so they've done a lot of really good and quick research around the tools to measure for things like bias and other ethical issues. And then we can run that on any bot or any AI project, have it evaluate and spit out some results so that we can continuously measure the impact and move forward kind of in a step-by-step fashion.
That's pretty good. The ethical AI framework is great. Have you found that it helps you truly remove bias? And what have some of the results been?
Well, that's a great question. Is bias completely removed? No. And it matters what use case you're using this for. So if you end up creating an AI project that helps professors create quizzes or quiz questions, which is a common use case, it's important to know that that's already a medium to low risk use case, and having the AI involved in that workflow may be a good fit because there's always a human to review it afterwards. It starts the draft and then you move forward. Now, I mean, let me turn it back and ask you, Roger, have you seen any AI being used in critical mission systems, let's say, things that are high risk, things that are can't fail?
That's a great question. So first, I remember listening to a podcast with Jeff Bezos once, and he said AI is a discovery, not an invention. And what he was saying is, it's not like we truly invented AI. We invented a number of techniques of like training, machine learning, moving on to neural networks and reinforcement learning. And these things we started scaling up with data. And some of the capabilities and the features of artificial intelligence were discovered like a human discovering a new continent, because we didn't expect those. And even the experts working on it were surprised when it all of a sudden they were teaching it on English and it learned Arabic, or they were teaching it on English and it learned to computer program or the ability. So in many ways, these are still not a known quantity. So it's very difficult to assume that we know all the use cases. So in the mission critical question, I don't think these are yet ready for prime time in mission critical use cases. And many people, there is a hype cycle right now that says you should have, this should be your customer service agent. This should be directly in front of students. I can say ASU is not putting this generative AI in front of students directly. We're taking that with, we want to make sure there's appropriate guardrails, how, safety is considered. And if you were to look at the industry, there'll be some news articles that say, oh, it's everywhere. But I recently did like a survey and checked several applications like Delta Airlines or Expedia.com and Best Buy, which were known in some articles. It was like they're using generative AI, and they really weren't. They were using a bot that had a workflow where it's basically you can choose from several options, or it's a keyword based interaction. They're not really generative AI. Expedia did have one feature that was help me plan my itinerary. You give it your itinerary idea, and it would kind of give you possibilities for those days, and it worked great. But I still was able to easily get it to hallucinate. If we have time, I added some slides to that in the appendix where we can see like I asked Expedia to take me on an agenda in Mesa, Arizona, where we look at dog-friendly activities, we look at dinosaurs and tree houses. Well, there are no tree houses, so it did end up hallucinating. I think this is Delta, where you can see that it's not a true bot. This is Expedia, which shows that it's experimental. And then you can see in the slide on the right that it added Agritopia, which doesn't actually have tree houses, but it added it. So this is not a bad use case. This is great of Expedia, but know that these are hallucinating. There was a recent issue with Canadian Airlines where they turned on a bot like this with generative AI, and they had an issue with like a refund policy where they went to court, and because the AI had told someone that they could get a refund, they had to do it. Anyway, I don't think it's ready and fully baked. When do you think it'll be ready, Ayat?
Okay, well, I'll come off my rash high horse and say we definitely have not put this in front of students yet at ASU without any guardrails at all. We are working closely with the provost, and it very much is a matter of proving out these use cases before we're ready to put it in front of students. And so all of the tools we've released are staff-facing, faculty-facing, and it's a matter of upskilling everybody. It's a matter of exploring and allowing all these folks to explore with the tools and find the right use cases and evaluate them with our ethical AI framework. And then we will have discussions about putting it in front of students. But we're definitely on that track, and it's clear what the opportunity is. The opportunity is huge. But of course, because of federal law, I hear the chatter in the chat room around FERPA data, we have to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting because Roger, I wanted to mention one thing is, where I work, we sell into higher ed. We're building a virtual classroom. And we've built and sprinkled in all these AI features that can be used for both teaching and learning. And the common feedback we get is, are these features toggleable? Can we turn off the student AI? We don't want AI in front of the students. AI in front of the teachers makes sense. Like when you want to generate class summaries or you want to do a synopsis of the chat, but you don't want the AI in front of the student and teaching them topics. And again, to your point, hallucinating. So again, I think this is a very measured approach that we're seeing in educational institutions all across the North American continent. So very interesting point. And Roger, you were going to say something?
I just want to call out that we have an amazing brain trust on this Zoom today. So I encourage people to ask questions because we are all learning. This isn't something that someone knows completely. These are new features that are being discovered and different organizations are learning new things. AI will certainly be in front of students soon. This is not saying don't do that, but so I just want to encourage everyone to ask questions, ask hard questions, and be a part of the conversation because we all have something to learn and share in these panels.
Great point. And Deborah, do you want to ask your question? I see it in the chat, but I think it's an important topic. Deborah, do you want to come? Go ahead.
I'm trying. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I was actually typing another question into a follow-on into the chat, but so I'm from Stellenbosch University in South Africa, and we've been using AI in our classroom where we're trying to train the students on how to write good prompts because we know that they're going to be using it anyway to learn. And so if we're talking about ethics, then for me, I kind of feel that it's our ethical duty to provide our students with kind of guardrailed activities where they can engage with AI and realize the fallibility of it as well as the power of it. And then, through interacting with it in a controlled environment, they then get to learn how it would be ethical to use it when they become engineers, and with knowing the risks involved. So I'm kind of interested in that side. I think that the discussion has been more on how lecturers would be using it to help them set up quizzes or mock projects or whatever. But what about students using it to learn, to do projects and so on?
That's a great.
Go ahead.
Okay, that's a great point. Yes, you're absolutely right. AI is here and students have been and already are using it. One of the first steps ASU took and our group took was create guidelines, and even the provost has created like an excerpt all faculty can put into their syllabi that essentially state what their policy is in their classroom about it. Some encourage it, some are still saying it, this is not permitted for use in our classroom. Again, the decentralized nature of this, but there are many faculty doing proof of concepts and beta runs of using AI in their classrooms and teaching students how to use it, prompt engineering and the like. And they're seeing a lot of success with it. The faculty are also upskilling to be able to tell when AI has been used or not, and explain to students the fact checking that they need to do and the responsible way in which they need to use AI in the class. And then obviously that extends out to their future workplaces and general upskilling in AI.
I would like to add too that when we say maybe hold back on mission critical use cases, I think there's an important governance element of it's more about liability. So everyone should be, all the students should be using AI in their work, like maybe helping them write a first draft of a paper or a faculty member using it to help establish good learning objectives for new content. when we're saying there's hesitation for some mission critical use cases, those are use cases where the university is responsible for it. So there's like this liability jump. If I am a student and I choose to use a tool, then that's my choice and I have a relationship with that tool. So if a student uses ChatGPT, that is awesome. We encourage that and we hope to have that happen because the student is taking on that responsibility of using that tool and there's less liability on the university. But if the university is going to make like a global tool where students must use that to interact with the university, now that generative AI is the responsibility of the university in our role as a steward. And so that relationship is more tenuous, but you should 100% have students and faculty all using AI. There was one interesting use case I heard where a faculty member teaching data analytics to non-engineers, and he was using each of them. He suggested get your own ChatGPT, so it's like a personal relationship with that student using that tool. And then they did advanced Python data analytics. Now, these were students that never had done that, and he was using it, encouraging them to prompt to learn the Python as they go. So he was having them operate as like junior programmers and just having them use ChatGPT to basically immediately upskill them directly into like advanced Python and data science. Fascinating use case.
Yes, yeah, and that reminds me of another use case, which essentially promotes this kind of additional learning that maybe we wouldn't have gotten in that classroom. There is a German language teacher at ASU who has created a bot that helps her students practice German outside of the classroom, so that inside the classroom, she can focus on maybe some of the more difficult things or provide one-on-one support. And students are not left hanging outside of the classroom. They still have somebody who they can practice with, some bot they can practice with German, and it's been tailored to her classroom, so it kind of drips to them the right amount of module learning as they move forward.
Yeah, you're so right. Some bot, somebody, the rules are kind of like being a little grayed out here. So this is a great discussion. I do want to check if there are any more questions, or otherwise we'll move on to our next topic, which is how can organizations and educational institutions deploy generative AI? So before we do that, I want to start a poll, and I want to kind of get your thoughts before we launch into the discussion. So you'll see a poll there. And it's a short answer poll. See a few answers coming in. Does everybody see the answers coming in?
Not the answers.
Not the answers, okay. Okay. So Roger, Ayad, I'm going to turn this over to both of you to start the discussion.
Sounds great. I'm seeing a quick question though. Maybe we should address that from Graciela. Do you have concerns in terms of discourse development, that is beyond the concepts described or developed in an answer? The text produced does not belong to the students. I think that's, yeah, go ahead, Roger.
This is a great one. This is a deep philosophical question. And we could easily spend an hour just on this because it's all about IP and who owns that content and what the content that was we used to train the AI, where you might see that. Now, I am more of an AI optimist. And I would also say, like, when any of us learn, we read a bunch of books or we go to classes, and we've interacted with many humans and they have influenced us. And some of the words that we use or techniques that we use to write are going to be derived from those past experiences. In many ways, AI is the same way. It is learned and it is synthesizing different information. So when a student uses AI, is that okay? What level of personalization must they put in it before they can call it their own? These are all, there is no answer to this yet. This is an ongoing debate in the community of humanity. If I were to say, well, I was using Microsoft Word and I had a spell checker and a grammar checker, and it suggested I reformat my sentence a little bit. Is that inappropriate, or is that okay? And then generative AI is just like that on steroids, where it's actually writing a paragraph for me. And then I might be more the editor than the true initial contributor. So this is an ongoing discussion that humans are having as we interact with this new technology. I don't think it's answered. I think the future is AI, so we want students to use that and use it as like a way to make their writing better. But there are 100% questions if the student doesn't edit it or change it or leverage any of editorial skills, it is likely not really their content.
I also like to mention that this is a great question also indeed, because it's bringing to the forefront what it means to be inspired versus to copy, which is an interesting question. I work with a lot of user experience designers, and we've had some interesting discussions around, well, you know, UX designers for millennia have been looking at other people's designs and been influenced by them, and then create something that could be a derivative, could be called a derivative of that, or it could be called inspired by that. And that's been an ongoing discussion. So I think where these things were not focused on before, AI is forcing them to the forefront. So we might find a lot of thought leadership in this space, or new ideas in this space for how to tell what's human and what's not. And if that matters to us really in our work processes.
I'm going to share the results of our poll so this can fuel the discussion for the next. Yes, Roger?
It just says 100% answered, but we don't see the actual results of the different short answers.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Wait,
Okay.
let's answer, Aya, what about concerns of students losing creativity using AI? Another question from chat.
I missed that one. Well, I'd love to know what that means. What does creativity mean, and how does one lose it? And could we be making creativity available to more people because of AI? And does that make us worried? You know, in the first industrial revolution, textile workers were really worried about having their artisanship taken away with some of the new machines that create textiles on a large scale. And they had a really big problem with saying that this is going to take away our creativity and our artistry. So we're far beyond that. And we know that what it did to that section of art maybe made it a little bit more niche, maybe made it a little bit more available to masses to enter. It lowers the barrier into creating textiles. And so I kind of see that the same way. What is creativity? Does this in fact allow a lot of people who stayed away from writing to write more now? Because I'd love to see their thoughts. People who are afraid to put pen to paper now have a buddy to help them through that, and lowers the barrier. So it's a great question. I wonder, you know, what creativity means, and the pros and cons of, say, making it available to the masses.
I think it's going to help writing, which is a controversial stance. I would say if we look back at education in general, education is defined by scarcity of expert knowledge. So in so many ways, our whole education system is built on, we have these brilliant instructors, PhDs, but they're very hard to come by in a world that lacks fully educated populace. And so everything about our education system is scarcity of that resource. So you only have one high stakes exam because it takes a long time to grade. You might have one writing project in a semester, and that's because it takes the faculty many, many hours to grade that. Imagine a world where every day you do writing. You need to write 3 paragraphs of how things are going, and the AI is going to evaluate that and give you some feedback. And once a week, it's going to grade a more detailed assignment and pass it on to the human to actually allocate points. In many ways, AI could allow a greater amount of feedback, immediate feedback, and the higher capability of more writing assignments in our work. So I believe it's going to encourage creativity and encourage writing, but we will have to fundamentally change how we teach and the level of engagement and interactivity in our teaching.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. Well, okay,
Can I add something?
of course.
So what you just said, Roger, just reminded me. I was at a seminar at Cambridge University in the UK in April, and my area of research is in materials engineering and with a mechanical slant. And their materials science department or materials engineering, I think they had like 35 students per lecturer. And I mean, I have a class of over 400 students that I'm teaching material science. So, you know, exactly what you're talking about there, the kind of interaction that a student in a class of 35 can have with an expert who has experience and can help guide their thoughts and answer critical questions is vastly different than what one person can do in front of 400 students. But if you manage to train a tutor bot to be able to answer questions or to prompt the students to think critically, that is like a massive opportunity that I think is waiting for us, in that it kind of creates clones of the lecturer.
That is a great point. And related to some of the comments coming up now, I think it's important to realize our role as educators and those working in education institutions, what our role is in shaping the AI that students use. There's a lot we can do to have the AI behave in a way the instructor needs it to, based on the use case and the topic we're talking about. And that's important to show that these general use AI like ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot are general use, but there are ways to create an AI experience that are very specific, maybe to the course material or to the instructor. And we should be playing that role, because otherwise students are just going to use general AI thinking it's enough, thinking it has everything they need. And in fact, we need to step in and create those experiences that harness AI, but do it appropriately in the pedagogy that we know about, that faculty has designed to move forward student learning in the responsible way.
And I think that's a theme of questions we're seeing in the chat is, how can we use AI for authentic assessment as educators? And there's a lot of great comments in the chat. So I would definitely encourage you, please unmute, ask your question if it hasn't been addressed yet by our panelists.
And I don't think we are saying remove humans from teaching. That is 100% not our plan. It's just the role of faculty members may change to more of a role of a mentor, a coach, a collaborator in research even, and maybe not doing some of the more difficult things that would sometimes be having grading papers or an initial review of grading papers. Maybe the AI does some of that, but the human still has that final say in reviewing. Go ahead and ask the question.
If I may make a couple of conclusions. I absolutely loved your example of textile weavers. The journey has been long, where the niche was created. Similarly, for original writers, the niche has to be created. Unfortunately, we are at the nascent state of AI tools for education. So the students who churn those essays quicker, faster, using AI tools without original thoughts, may be the initial winners. So I think it's pros and cons, but Roger, for your other point, absolutely agree. The teacher's role is not to generate question papers every day and grading. It is hand-holding the students, being their mentor day to day. So this AI is a tool to help teachers succeed in their actual goals of understanding the student and teaching them and helping out with research. I'm enjoying the discussion. Thank you for this.
Wait, do you
Can
think
I,
teachers?
can I,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
I am Ravi Shankar Chandu here.
Go
See,
ahead.
most of the times we are discussing things, which is external to a teacher. But can we take advantage of AI and improve our teaching?
That's a
That
great question.
okay?
How can I improve myself? AI is not just trying to improve assessment, or these are all external factors.
That's a great one. Roger, did you have something to mention?
That is a great question. First, faculty love AI in helping build content. So it is a very powerful tool in helping create content, like creating clear learning objectives and evaluating those, creating rubrics. It can 100% do that. We do have an initiative where we have AI. A student goes into the learning management system. ASU uses Canvas. They turn in a writing assignment. The AI picks that up and it evaluates it based on the rubric that the faculty has put there. We then get both feedback, like feedback on the writing and a score. But we've hidden that from faculty because we're not ready to like have the AI even be shown to do that. However, what we're doing is we're evaluating now the student's response and the grades, and we're seeing like if one grader has more bias than another, or how far out of line they are with the standard. And in many ways, this allows us as graders to see where we're being biased. Maybe when we start grading papers in this evening, we're really energetic and giving good scores, and after like 2 hours, the scores start to dip. We now have the ability to kind of have a baseline from the AI of what it predicted and some of the feedback it has, and it can also help it be more consistent. So I do think AI is a great way to objectively add a baseline, even though it might not be like the final decision maker on those grades.
Can I add something? See, when I enter a classroom, when I start teaching for 5 minutes, by seeing the faces itself, if I am an intelligent teacher, I can find out whether the students are following or not. So I can use AI, see the faces. AI should tell me, guy, you have to, something is wrong, go, your teaching is not, being accepted. No, that sort of, inputs which a human cannot get, a teacher cannot get while teaching, that sort of thing, inputs I expect from AI. So somebody can comment on these things?
That's a great idea. I'd actually like to ask Anita because she works in the industry of a virtual classroom, and a lot of that has to do with engagement and feedback for the faculty. Anita, can you share some of those great ideas?
Yeah, so in our virtual classroom model, we're using real-time engagement and using those data analytics to nudge our teachers in real time about who's engaged, who's not engaged, because it's really about that face time that you have with the student. Like Roger and Ayat were saying, we're never going to replace that human component. But what we're doing is we're using AI to start putting focus on the relevant things that are focused on learner outcomes. And I think that's really one of the power of AI, that it can quickly do all this data analytics behind the scenes, quickly run through the algorithms and present in a meaningful way to educators what's most important in the classroom at the time.
We've said this before, I'm going to say it again. This makes people superhuman. So if you put it in the hands of great faculty, that will make the faculty do more with their time and their expertise. And that's exactly what we want.
We have so many great questions in the chat. I'm not sure if we should continue with the chat or do you want to continue on this topic? So I'll leave that to our panelists.
Wait, there was a question on on more of platforms. So maybe we could just briefly dip into how organizations can deploy generative AI. Do you want to start that with how is ASU, for instance, deploying AI? What are some of the tools being used?
That I'd love to share about that. This is actually one of the very first core lessons I would say ASU and those of us at ASU learned in AI. That is that even if you buy the best technologies, the latest ChatGPT, and give those to folks, that's not enough. This is, again, everyone's learning, everyone's in discovery mode about this new thing. And it's important we all learn how to use it. We upskill folks before they can use it in a valuable way. There are many institutions, educational institutions, that as soon as ChatGPT came out last year, they purchased many of them and kind of blanketed their campus with it. And a year and a half later, there really wasn't much coming out of that. There wasn't much impact. There wasn't much understanding of how this can be used to impact students in a real way. And so at ASU, we were making sure that we create many groups and many opportunities to learn, but we also build and weave in guidance and coaching into all the AI tools that we create.
And I would like to talk to the technical side. So what you mentioned is like half of the release of generative AI at a university or an institution is educating the community, like you said, where ASU's built a strong community, and actually has like a team of 5 people that their whole mission is just creating documentation, training, and pulling that community and upskilling the whole group of faculty, staff, and students. But from a technical standpoint, like you said, you can't just go and get everyone a ChatGPT license. One, it's ridiculously expensive, $20 per student per month, which is more than a whole annual subscription to like Canvas LMS. So, and then you're also tied into a particular provider. And it's a very dynamic space where different, like Claude comes out and has some better features for academia, or maybe you want to use the Llama model, or maybe you have some developers that need to be using a variety of tools. So what ASU has done is, instead of just giving licenses to ChatGPT, we've actually built a framework. So essentially, and I would say, I believe all large organizations will need to do something similar, where ASU controls that interface. It's a similar interface to ChatGPT, but behind the scenes, we're using an API to call the models. So we can use the GPT-4o, the ChatGPT model. We can use the GPT-4o mini, which is the same, but it's a little less expensive and has slightly less capability. We can use Gemini 1.5 Pro. We can use Llama and Anthropic Claude. How are we doing that? With the APIs, it's talking to AWS Bedrock, which hosts many of those models. But we also have direct agreements with Google and OpenAI so that we can call their APIs. This changes ASU's pricing model from a per seat license, where you might have some people using it and some people not, to a usage based. So we're now just paying for token usage of people that are using it. It also allows ASU to layer on governance. So we now have control over that interface, so we can upskill and educate as people are using it. And we also have additional guardrails, so we can see the prompts people are using. We protect that data just like we protect email data at ASU. But at the same time, if someone's having a health emergency or something, we would have the ability to add an agent that might look at that. Now, ASU has not scaled this to all students, but this is the direction we're taking, and we're well along our way to building this interface that will act as the AI starting point for students, faculty, and staff.
I have to know, Roger, how many AI companies are hitting your email inbox and LinkedIn every day? It's trying to sell you something with AI.
that is my role, is to evaluate new vendors that offer tools, because we cannot build as fast as the industry builds. So we have to look for the best tools in the world. There are very many startups, and so many of them just say AI, but they're just a regular bot, or they're just putting a chat bot front of their company on top of an existing model. But there are some truly novel and interesting tools and technologies. So I would say maybe a couple a day, at least. And then some of them are very mature. Others are in their initial phases. It's the Wild West.
Yeah, I'd also like to know from this group, are you all getting, marketing from AI companies and AI vendors in your roles? Is that happening? Maybe hands up or say in the chat. I'm seeing a couple. I think one of the important things to know if you are in an educational institution and might even be considering purchasing things is that there's a lot to be careful about. Again, everyone in the industry, not just us here, everyone in the industry is new and learning how to form products and learning value propositions and learning what did. So it's important to have a critical eye on anybody selling you AI. It's important that you understand if it's what Roger said, it's just AI washing is the term now people use, where they kind of say they use AI in a little bit, but they've not actually applied it or have impact in what they've built. It's critical if you want to try a product that's being sold to you, to make sure you pilot it first and don't lock yourself into a contract with any one particular company before proving out that it works in your situation. That should be free or little cost. They shouldn't be charging you for that. You need to validate their claims. That's really important if you represent that role in your institution or even in your classroom, to not get duped by that and just ask those critical questions.
Can some organization take care of this, washing, AI washing, and say applying precautionary principle, use it for some time, after that, if the results are good, then you allow it to be used by universities. Otherwise, you stop that.
I would love to see that. I mean, I haven't heard of anything like that yet. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out very soon, like approved by and for educational
Yeah.
institutions.
There's
Roger,
one called Anthropic AI. So they do research various products and companies that come out. They do give their stamp of approval, but it is not large scale. Anthropic AI.
is that the same
Ma'am, I
Anthropic?
think, hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just I wanted to know that this ongoing discussion, we can use this for quizzes and all, but can we go for some session planning, examples, case studies type of questions asking to AI, and that can be added in the class discussion? Please enlighten on this.
I didn't quite catch that. Did you say session planning?
Yeah, session planning. Suppose example, I am a civil guy and I'm teaching some, say, construction related concrete part to the students. And sometimes many advancements are coming in the market which are not on my table. I have not gone through. So I just wanted to add that content to my discussion in the class. Then how I couple that things and I can get this, because when it goes to technical, it little bit confuses my perception. Please.
Uh, can I answer this question?
Please, sir,
Sure.
please.
See, in class, there'll be a lot of discussion. If you're a good teacher, you will invariably inform the student what is the latest in that particular area. You plan before the class to mention these developments, but in the flow, probably sometimes you forget many points. Probably their AI can remind you that these things should be mentioned. I don't know how that arrangement can be made, but using AI, you will be reminded every time as per your plan. what you have prepared the earlier evening, and the AI can remind you live or in real time what are the things you have to mention during the class at that particular time. Probably
No,
that sort of.
yeah, I'll add to this, for example, be specific on, say, suppose if I discuss, say, foundations, or if I discuss large foundations on the construction sites. So now we are having, say, a problem of automation. Many automation companies are in the industry. So if I want to give a little bit flair of that, what type of gauges, how they measure the temperature, relative humidity, corrosion rate, mapping, all that can be coupled, that I wanted to just share with all of you. That's my point.
And that's a really good point, Amol. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
because the AI is giving you the broad framework and talking points,
exactly,
and it's
exactly.
really spurring thinking on your part, and you take that into the classroom. So I think that's a really great point. And I think that's what Ayad and Roger were talking about, creating content using AI, because when you
Exactly.
in the past, when you do case studies, I've found that instructors think about one particular topic, but now with AI, for example, the Great Depression, you want to teach about the Great Depression in your class, which is a phenomenon in the US that happened in the 1920s. But the AI helps you think about the financial aspects, the budgeting, the social conditions at that time, and is giving a broader 360-degree, a little bit of an interdisciplinary view into the problem statement that probably wasn't possible before because we
Yeah.
were all focused on one thing. So great topic, great question.
Yeah.
There were
And
lots more.
to add and close on this, if you permit.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, as you said now, so if I start searching the financial aspects, as you said, of the depression theory in the US, it will take lot of hell of time to get that data compiled, put on my PPT, and then go to class. So instead, I can have this overview, little touch and go, and discuss this in class in all angles, as you rightly said, 360-degree view. Thank you.
Yeah, great point. So Roger, yeah, still a lot of questions in the chat. Do you want to address those? How are you thinking? We have 5 minutes left.
I would love to see some maybe some of the examples that we've seen, Roger, on AI and how it's particularly helpful in teaching. For example, I think it's important to break out what is important for humans to teach and what is okay for a bot to teach. Let's say what your TA, you're comfortable with your TA doing, you can pass that over to a bot. But it's critical, like we said before, taking the human out of it is not the goal, and it should not be the goal.
Yeah, I can talk of some of the tools. I would also encourage, like in closing, to this whole group, change in this world is not by some big company. Change happens through a few small people, or a few people being committed and experimenting and being curious and trying something new. So I would encourage this group of folks on this call, you are the change. Like, don't be thinking someone else is going to change and figure it out. It's up to you to like take these tools, be curious, try something, and you might be the one that figures out the future of education. Like, don't expect some big organization to figure it out, because that is never how the world has worked. It's always been individuals committed, curious, trying something and figuring that out. Now, with ASU, we have a bunch of tools. Like a perfect example is, it used to take us a ton of time to do transcripts. So whenever we would do a video, we would send it to a transcript group. They would have humans that transcribed it, and then it would come back. We'd have to format it for HTML. We would upload it. We now have like a Slack channel where you just put in a URL to a YouTube. It'll actually watch the YouTube. It'll transcribe it through Whisper, which is like an API that OpenAI offers. It then feeds that back through the LLM and says, please see if you find any errors and fix them. So it's almost like a second review that actually improves the quality a little more. And then we have the LLM pass a third time, please convert this into a well-formatted HTML page. which it's then ready for upload so that it can accompany that video. Tools like that. We also have like a quiz generator. So you can put in content, it will suggest some quiz questions. And I know we've already talked about that. We also see, as far as teaching and learning, Canvas now has like a course search feature that's AI based. So in a course, you can now just search and it will give you context and point you to places in that course. We have a syllabus helper where you can actually, the faculty uploads the syllabus, and now some of our syllabus, it's like a contract. It's like 15, 20 pages. And now students can just like ask a question and it will answer from that syllabus information and provide a reference to, here's where I found the information that you're looking for in the syllabus. And it gives them an easy answer. These are just a few, but this whole community, we're all going to be finding new things like this. So I encourage you all to keep. And what other, you actually have been working on a ton of faculty interactions. What other tools are your favorites?
Well, I'm currently obsessed with simulation learning. So we've all known for a long time that the best way students learn is in real applicable situations. And we have a health school, or we're building a health school at ASU. And one of the projects there is to create a bot that simulates a patient so that students can get practice in how to speak with patients, how to ask them the right questions. And it's an amazing learning tool. It's so much more than one single faculty member could do in teaching patient communication. And I'm really excited for the other ways we can create real simulated scenarios for learning before students hit the workplace in the real world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we've done a lot of questions and answers, and I know we're almost up for time. I noticed that a lot of people asked to connect with our panelists, Ayat and Roger. So here are their email addresses. You can connect with them on LinkedIn. And lots of great questions. Unfortunately, we couldn't cover everything, but we hope we've given you a framework about how to approach and think about AI. So at this point, I'll ask Roger and Ayat to give last comments, and then we'll close with Soma and Hans.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. And again, we're all discoverers on the frontier. So please do reach out if you're interested in doing a particular project or have questions in your institution. We want to know. Together, we will find what is the best use case, what are the best use cases and the best way to build education for the future.
I just want to say thank you for the community that is engaged, the questions and the discussion. This is what we are all learning this. So I really appreciate all of you taking the time to look at AI and use it in your life and help, upskill the students of the future with these tools. So thank you so much for the discussion and your work.
And like you both said, this is a discovery, it's not an invention. So things are changing fast in the world of education, and really appreciate all the comments and great questions. Soma, Hans, do you want to close for us?
Yeah. Soma, please make a couple of comments. I make some final comments, dear Soma.
Sure. First of all, I want to thank the presenters, Roger Kohler, Ayat Said, and the moderator, Anita Chawla. And Hans, thank you so much for giving IACEE this opportunity to collaborate with IFEES. Thank you for this time. And Sridhar, and I want to thank Krishna Vedula, who is not here today, for helping us with the technology. Thank you very much. I have learned a lot. I am experimenting with several tools, and especially for instructional design. And I use Claude a lot. So, and I see which kind of questions are answered by which tool better. So I hope that we come back with some more information at some other time. With that, I'll give it to Hans.
Thank you very much, Soma. This has been quite an inspiring morning, and thank you very much for this very, very thoughtful presentation. It's an amazing learning experience, and what comes to my mind, I'd like to continue the dialogue with you, Soma, and our dear friends maybe have a sequel, a follow-up to this conversation. It's a different dialogue, but I'm very inspired. Let me just, in a sense, talk about something just very briefly for a few seconds. As a representative working with many global engineering education organizations globally per se, I'm very pleased to let all of you know, and some of you who are present here have been engaged historically. We have two major global meetings this year. I just want to put it on your radar screen, and if you have any questions, you can write to me. This is the IFEES GEDC Regional Conference in Belgrade, Serbia, this late October, and where we bring together academic leaders, corporate and students, and certainly the issue of AI is also very much part of our agenda. The same applies for our WEEF Global Conference with the Global Engineering Deans Council in Sydney, Australia, in early December 2 to 5, where again, many colleagues representing academia, even also some government, students, certainly important, faculty, corporate, and so on, will be there. And again, also in our agenda, we have some speakers to focus on this issue of AI. It's an amazing journey that all of us are. So I want to thank you very much on behalf of Soma, Krishna, and myself, and all of you. Brilliant facilitation. Thank you for joining us. And let's explore, please, Ayat and Roger, a sequel to this wonderful, thoughtful discussion today. Peace be with all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.